LA Metro Magazine podcast is here to bring you the entertaining, informative, and inspiring stories of the people who live, work, and play in the greater Lewiston, Auburn, Maine area. I'm your host, Colby Michaud. Today, we sit down with Ray Michaud, the site coordinator for Veterans Inc. in Lewiston. We chat about his military experience in living in northern Maine, deployments overseas, and we dive into his current role and how he's affecting the lives of homeless veterans in this area. This is LA Metro Magazine Podcast, Episode 6. Hello, Ray.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
No problem.
So we are sitting at your office at Veterans Inc. in Lewiston, Main Street in Lewiston. Could you talk a little bit about what Veterans Inc. is?
Absolutely. We are here in Lewiston, 393 Main Street, Lewiston. It is the old St. Joe's Catholic School, for those of you that know Lewiston. And Veterans Inc., we're a nonprofit agency, and we came to Maine. We're based out of Worcester, Massachusetts, and we came to Maine about 6 years ago, and we were doing employment and training for homeless veterans. And at the time, Veterans Inc. had already had their eyes on this building and started the renovation project. And then when they completed the project in January of 2015, they needed a site coordinator to operate it, and I was already in town working with Veterans Inc., so it was an easy transition for me.
Yeah, and we'll come back to what that means, being site coordinator for this facility. But I think it'd be important to give a little bit of background to who you are. And for, full disclosure, you are my father. So I just want,
And you are my son.
That is true. So let's go back in time. Your father,
Yeah.
served in the military, Air Force as well.
Yeah. So you're Pepe. Yes, he was a 20-year career in the Air Force, and served all over the world. His first assignment was to Clark Air Force Base, or Clark Air Base in the Philippines, and that's where he met your Lola, my mom. And they had a short tour there. They came back to the States. He was stationed in Vandenberg, California, Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. That was in 1965, and that's where I came along. And from there, different places that we've lived. He was stationed. He was stationed in Alaska, North Dakota. He actually went back to Clark Air Base in the Philippines. So I got to live over there, and that's where your uncle, my brother, was born. He was born over there in the Philippines. And then when we came back to the States, we went to Loring Air Force Base in Limestone. So that would have been in the mid-'70s. And then from Limestone, we were stationed just down the road here at Pease Air Force Base in Portsmouth. We were there for 4 years, and he was getting close to the end of his service. His 20 years was coming up, and they brought him back up to Limestone. And then he did like a year or two there. And in 1982, he retired, and then that's when the whole family moved here to Lewiston.
Why Lewiston? I mean, so Pepe was from...
Pepe was born in Van Buren, but his family moved from Van Buren down to Lewiston when he was just a little boy. And that's where the whole family has been here in Lewiston. So when during our Air Force time, whenever we came home on leave, on vacation, it was always here to Lewiston. So Lewiston is, even though we've been away for many, many years, Lewiston's always been home.
And then, so you went to Lewiston High School.
I did. I did my last 2 years of my high school career at Lewiston High School. And then after I graduated, I went to Husson College. It was Husson College back in those days. And after my first year there, back in those days, the grades came home in the mail. So I didn't have an opportunity to intercept my grades before my dad opened the mail and found out how horrible my grades were. So we had a little bet. If I went back my sophomore year to Husson, if I didn't get my grades up, I would leave Husson and I would enlist in the Air Force. So sure enough.
Welcome to the military.
Yeah. So I did one more semester at Husson. Grades were just I just wasn't mature enough to handle college on my own. So I held up my end of the deal and said, okay, maybe the military life is for me. So I went in the Air Force in 1985.
1985. I think we might be missing a small but important piece of the story. In high school, you met somebody that's very important to my life.
Yeah. So in high school, oh my gosh, this is a crazy story. So, but just to keep it short, in high school, I met a girl. Her name was Debbie Costello. Her folks were also in the service. And in fact, our mothers were friends. They were friends at up in Loring, up in Limestone. They used to go to aerobics classes together. And even more strange than that is when we were in Limestone, Debbie and I used to babysit the same kids from the same family. There was this triangle of friends. And if I was not available to babysit, they would call Debbie and vice versa. And we didn't know each other back then. We did not meet until we came here and met in high school.
Isn't it true that because Pepe and Lola, Ray and Frankie Michaud, lived just up the hill from the old McDonald's on Lisbon Street at the time?
Right.
Didn't both Lola,
right,
your mother, and Mom's mother work at the same McDonald's?
They worked at the same. In fact, I did as well. When I was on school break and before I joined the Air Force, I was employed at McDonald's. So I worked there with Lola, your mother, and with Gail, your grandmother on your mom's side. So and that's when essentially we met, and basically our moms sort of set us up, and it's history. So
back to Husson, bad grades, then enlist in the Air Force.
Yes. So
why Air Force?
Well, obviously, I had being an Air Force brat, growing up as a child in the Air Force, I clearly saw the way of life, and it was really, really what I wanted to do. In fact, when I was a kid growing up in the Air Force, when I got older into sports, there's an organization within the Air Force, and back in those days it was called MWR, Morale, Welfare, and Recreation. And that organization within the Air Force took care of all the fun things on base, all the sports activities, all the recreation activities, for all the Air Force personnel and their families. So I got to partake in all of those activities. So when I finally decided, okay, I'm going to do this Air Force thing, that's the career field I wanted to go into. And that's what I got. I was able to, I went to boot camp, like we all do in the Air Force, in San Antonio, Texas. And then my first duty station was actually Loring Air Force Base up in Aroostook County. And that's what I was doing. I was working in the base gymnasium, the base fitness center, running fitness programs and running sports programs.
And was that services squadron? Is that what it was called?
So Those days, early in my career,
We're talking about early.
this was in 1985, probably
Okay.
when you came along in 1990. That career field was still, like I said, MWR. So
Okay.
it's morale, welfare, and recreation. The Air Force has another piece of another career field, and it's called the services career field. And that career field had food services and lodging. And what the Air Force did in the early 90s is they combined all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that means when you were in that career field, you could be working in the base fitness center, or you could be working in the base dining facility, or you could be working in the base lodging facility, which is like our temporary lodging hotel type activities. So true story, when I was stationed in March Air Force Base in California, by that time I had been in the Air Force for 10 years. I'd been just about half of my career, and I was working. I was the NCOIC, the non-commissioned officer in charge of the fitness center on base. And I remember it was like a Thursday or Friday afternoon, my commander called me up and he said, "Ray," he says, "for you to progress in this is services career field, you need to broaden your horizons. You need to do other things other than just fitness, because up until that point, that's all I have done is fitness and recreation." He said, "You need to broaden your career. You need food service, or you need some lodging." I said, "Okay, I you're right. You're absolutely right." So, true story, I literally went from a Friday afternoon, my last day of work at the fitness center. Monday morning, I reported to the base dining facility. I had no food experience, but suddenly I was a shift leader because of my rank, being a staff sergeant at the time. I was in charge of 4 or 5 young airmen, and and that's what we were to do, is to provide meals for the members on base.
Is it true that every base has its own mission or its own purpose or specific focus?
Yes.
Do you remember what Loring?
Loring was definitely, yes. That was a Strategic Air Command during my time in the Air Force. Strategic Air Command, and if there's any old timers listening, you know what this is. SAC, okay, Strategic Air Command, and these, for instance, Loring had the B-52s. All right, we had the B-52s, and we had tankers, the air refueling aircraft. So that when they launched those B-52s, as soon as they launched them, they would refuel them so that these B-52s could spend hours and hours in the air without landing, getting fuel.
A B-52 is a bomber.
A bomber, yes.
Yeah. And shortly after I came around, Loring closed.
That is correct. Loring...
Which is why we had to go to...
So Loring was on the chopping block. I think that was right around 1993, 94 time frame. And, at that point, we had been, you were there, we had been at Loring for about 10 years. And so, when they finally decide they're closing the base, we need to start shipping these military members out of here and sending them to different bases. Since I was one of the ones that was at that base for so long, we were like on that first wave to leave the base. It was sort of the first in, first out kind of thinking. So we left early on. As soon as the base closure started happening, we were like one of the first out of there.
Can you talk a little bit about your tours of duty?
Sure. So,
You've been away a couple times.
Yeah. So Loring, having been at Loring for 10 years, was really great because, for one thing, we were close to home. All the family was still here. We were only 5 or 6 hours away. But during that time, I did get to travel. I wasn't just stuck there. I had a couple of TDYs, temporary duties, out in RAF Fairford in England, and that was during that time. That was when the Gulf War hit. So. And Loring's aircraft were a huge part. Any history buffs out there, when you think about the Gulf Storm, that Desert Storm War, that first night of the bombing that took place, those B-52s were the B-52s. Some of them, I think there was a combination, but some of them were actually Loring B-52s that made those initial bombing runs. And we were deployed at Diego Garcia during that time frame in the Indian Ocean, and there for 6 or 7 months.
And your mission there was?
Again, we were MWR, so that's what we did. We provided services, recreation type services for all the troops, and there were lots from. We had to have brought in like 5,000 troops, to support all the aircraft that came with us.
And this is multi-branch, right? This isn't just Air Force.
It was primarily Air Force. There were some other branches like the Navy. Actually, is that was at the time their home base. They used that for the fleet. Navy ships would come into Diego Garcia and do some stops, and they would take a little R&R. But the mission from Diego was primarily Air Force, flying those bombing missions out of there, and that's what we did. Like I said, we set up some. At the time, there were very unique recreational activities. We were using a lot of tent type facilities, canvas type tents for we would set up like a lounge, like a sort of a bar and stack bar area for the troops. We would have like areas. Something unique that we did was we set up little recording studios, and we had this huge library. CDs were just becoming big in those days, and we actually got a huge donation from Memorex, these cassettes. Well, cassettes was still big, but CDs were starting to come online. So we allowed troops to come in and make recordings of CDs on cassettes so they could have all this free music. That was the free music back in those days.
No Spotify
No
back then.
Spotify, no. So that was unique to us. And then another thing that we did, I believe it was Sony. Sony sent us, cases and cases, hundreds of cases of blank videotapes, and they were like 30-minute long blank videotapes. And we purchased, we had maybe like 10 video cameras, and we set up little studios, and we would allow troops to record video messages, and then send those tapes back home to their loved ones. And then we also did sporting, just like we did at our regular bases. We organized and ran intramural sporting events, softball, flag football, basketball, all of those sporting events that the troops need to get out and have some fun.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize how much is needed on the support end of it. You see the clips in the media that the troops on the front lines, but there's so much required to support those troops on the ground.
The support, is incredible. It really is. And what was really neat, I'll never forget this, is early on, so we deployed, was it August time frame? And so that was early on in this deployment. And, the first couple of months were setting up the bases and getting the tents built and just all the infrastructure stuff. And then there was a period where we were all set up, but nothing was really happening in the world as far as the actual conflict. And during that time frame, we were busy. We were we had trips and tours. We had this trips and tours set up where at the very edge of the island was this old coconut plantation, and we would set up a cooler. A bunch of guys would come to us, and we would pack them a cooler with burgers and all the things for a barbecue, and we would send them off with a vehicle and give them directions out to this beautiful isolated beach on the corner, in the very back corner of this island, and they would spend the day there. And we had, obviously in the middle of the ocean, we had a water recreation activity. So we had some small boats and things like that guys can use and play around the water. And like I said, all the sporting activities. So snorkeling. That was one of the things that we did. We had snorkeling gear. So gearing up for this, we were busy all the time. We're like, oh my gosh, nobody works around here. Everybody's just coming to us. And right before, we didn't know this was happening, but right before that bombing run, that early January, I can't remember the exact date. But we noticed a few days before that, all of a sudden, people stopped coming to us. And we're like, what the heck is going on, And sure enough, I'll never forget the night that those planes launched. We were sitting outside our tent. Beautiful night. It was a warm breeze, and we could hear the engines starting to run up out on the flight line. And those B-52s, again, if if you're a history buff and you know those B-52 engines have a very distinct sound, we can hear them running their engines. We're like, what the heck is going on? And, an hour later or so, you can hear them, you actually see them launch. They took off in darkness, no lights on, but you could see their afterburners just glowing as they departed. And we thought, what the heck? This is not right. Something's going on here. And sure enough, it was the next morning when we saw it on CNN that the war had started and those B-52s had just did those bombing runs.
That's interesting. You didn't know that was going to be happening.
Didn't know.
No.
But now looking back, we kind of saw the signs because people stopped coming to our activities.
Right.
We all know that exercising regularly is beneficial in so many ways, so why don't we always get around to doing it? Hi, I'm Nicole, Association Director of Health, Wellness, and Fitness at the YMCA of Auburn, Lewiston, here with some tips to get you moving. The recommended amount of physical exercise is 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. You can break it up into 3 10-minute sessions if you need to. It can help reduce the risk of chronic disease, control weight, improve mental health, and reduce stress. You can keep it simple. An outdoor jog, bike ride, yoga, or even a brisk walk has its rewards. Exercising can promote better sleep quality and relaxation while boosting energy levels. It is also good for your muscles, bones, memory, and brain function. The bottom line is that physical exercise offers incredible benefits that can improve nearly every aspect of your health from the inside out. It is good for your mind, body, and spirit. For more health and wellness tips and to learn more about the YMCA of Auburn Lewiston, visit us online at alymca.org or stop by and see us.
So, obviously, you could spend hours and hours talking about your career in the Air Force. You've been to a lot of different bases, but since we have limited time on this show, I think we should circle back to where we are today.
Yeah.
In Lewiston and Veterans Inc.
Yep.
And maybe we could start with what is a veteran? What does that mean? If you look into the dictionary, simply means someone who served in the military. But I'm sure with anybody's experience with, if they know a veteran, that definition is expanded upon.
Right. Well, how about this? So from my point of view, I'm the site coordinator here for Veterans Inc. And so we have this program where we offer transitional housing for homeless veterans. Okay. So for a homeless veteran, when we start looking into their history and to verify that they are, in fact, a veteran, all we're looking for is 1 day of active duty service and as long as they don't have a bad conduct discharge. There's a few categories of discharge. Bad conduct being the worst, I think, is bad conduct or dishonorable. So whatever the worst is, obviously somebody like that would not be eligible for our program. Now, they're still considered a veteran, but not necessarily eligible for our program. All right. So for our program, 1 day of active duty. Where that gets tricky sometimes is sometimes you have a veteran. They're still a veteran in other eyes, but they were reservist or they were guard, and they only went to basic training and they were never activated. They were just always on reserve status or guard status and never activated. Somebody like that would not be eligible for our program. And then some other VA benefits as well. So when you start talking about the Veterans Administration, Veterans Inc., and just other veterans, there are there could be many different definitions of a veteran.
Right, and they come in all shapes and sizes and ages.
Oh, absolutely.
Here in Lewiston, you have obviously you're limited by the facility to your capacity of how many you can help. Is there any plan to expand that, or what can you do here?
As a matter of fact, yeah. So when we first opened back in January of 2015, we opened up with 20 rooms. So right now I have 20 rooms here. And when they were doing that renovation project, there were 4 classrooms that didn't, or actually it was 2 classrooms. It was 2 classrooms because there's a classroom makes up 2 rooms for a vet. So there were 2 classrooms that didn't quite get finished in a renovation project. So it's funny you brought that up because coming this October, so we're going to be starting to look around for contractors in the area that want to finish. I have 4 rooms upstairs that are maybe at 20% completion. There's all there is frame. Wall frames. There's no walls up. There's no electricity. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But we're awarded a grant, and we want to have those rooms occupied by October. So our capacity will be up to 24 by October.
So you can add 4 more.
Yep.
And what is it like for someone that gets into the program? What is a typical day like for someone here?
Yeah. So our veterans, when our veterans come in, they know right off the bat that this is transitional housing. This is not permanent housing. This is nobody's forever home. And we work closely with the VA. It's basically a VA-funded program. And the VA, they have like a 90-day. They're hoping to get these veterans housed within 90 days. Okay, that's the ultimate goal. When they first come in here, we're trying within 90 days to get them housed. Now, some of them can do it, depending on their income, depending on if they can get hooked up with a HUD-VASH voucher from the VA, if they can get hooked up with Section 8 housing from the state, they can quickly transition into permanent housing. Others, it might take a little bit of time. There might be some barriers there that they have to work through first. And while they're here, those are the things that we work on. For instance, if a veteran is not working but willing and able to work, we have resources where we help them get employed. And then once they start making money, saving money, then they can move on to permanent housing. We have some veterans that don't realize that they have VA benefits that they can get, that they're eligible for. So when they come in, we'll help them apply for the VA benefits, and they may be receiving some compensation later on down the road. So, so that's what they're working on. While they're here, like I said, they're not just hanging out here and waiting. They're working on things to make themselves better.
And I imagine there's the population of eligible veterans exceeds the capacity of this facility in this area. Is there a waiting list here?
It fluctuates. right now, and I think a lot has to do with the pandemic. I have 6 openings. 6 months ago, we were full. We were full with a waiting list, and what happened was, the veterans that were here, they had been working on their housing situation, and eventually they left. Well, during the pandemic, we had stopped taking intakes, just because of precautions. So it's taken us a while, and I was, just a couple of weeks ago, I was down to 50% occupancy. But we've had some guys, we're starting to bring guys in. As long as we can get guys a negative COVID test, we can bring them in. So we're slowly but surely getting back to our numbers. But, in the 5 or 6 years that we've been open, we've always been full or close to full, usually having a wait list. There are 2 other programs down in southern Maine that are very similar to this, and they're always full. So I think when we open up the 4 additional rooms, I don't think we'll be at a point, where we're gonna, have veterans sleeping in their cars because we're all filled up. If we have veterans sleeping in their vehicles, it's it's unfortunate that for some reason they don't want the help. But I think the 4 rooms is going to do us a lot of good.
And so if that work can start in October, when are you hoping to be able to open those
Well,
up?
no, we're hoping to be operational October. Wow. So
very soon.
We're working with our headquarters office out of Worcester now. We're trying to get some quotes from local contractors, and hopefully soon start some construction.
The production of this podcast would not be possible without the support of our community partners. One of those just happens to be our sister publication, Uncle Andy's Digest. Uncle Andy's Digest has been woven into the fabric of the greater Lewiston, Auburn community over the last 25 years by providing its readers with humorous one-liners, short stories, and most importantly, positivity. Fun fact, in August of 1996, the first edition of the Digest was printed. That means you can help celebrate 25 years of Uncle Andy's with this month's special 25th anniversary edition. One thing that surprises people to learn is that Uncle Andy's is distributed to 19 cities and towns in the central Maine area. That means whether you're in Sebattis, Auburn, Turner, or Oxford Hills, you can pick up a copy, or 2 if you're a good neighbor. So if you're a local business that wants more exposure and top-of-mind awareness, make sure you check out Uncle Andy's Digest. Why not get more exposure for your business while spreading smiles at the same time? Those that do simply say, it works. So specific to this job, what, especially right now, but also thinking to pre-COVID, what are some of the challenges that you face?
Yeah, our veterans, when I talk to folks about our program here and the veterans that are coming in, something that comes out of my mouth a lot is our veterans are homeless for a reason. Okay, it could be somebody that has a substance abuse issue. All right, and while they're here, we're going to get them help. We can get them to counseling. In some cases, we can send the veteran to a long-term domiciliary and then bring them back here, for them to get housed up. We have some veterans that have some mental health issues. It could be anything along the lines of PTSD, depression, anxiety. And then, we have some veterans that have both. So it's about giving them the supports that they need to work through those barriers so they can find housing. Every once in a while, we have a veteran, just a string of bad luck. Lost their job. The spouse at the time said, "Okay, no job, no money. Okay, you're out." And here's a veteran that all of a sudden is homeless. And quite honestly, it's those veterans that are short stays here. Those are the veterans that are gone, usually back out on their own place, employed within 90 days. Those are the quick turnarounds that we like to see. But, we do have our guys that have issues, and, and what's great about this program, before this came to Lewiston, if this wasn't here, our veterans would be, at best, staying in a shelter or sleeping in their vehicle, or in some cases, and I've brought in quite a few guys over the years, sleeping outside. So what's nice about this program is they can come in, have a nice room to stay in while they are working on whatever issues that they have, whether it's just finding a job or, going to their AA meetings. At least they have a place to shower, to sleep at night, and then they can.
Yeah, you're providing the foundation.
Absolutely.
So that they can continue to build on top of that.
Yes.
Does Veterans Inc. partner with any other local organizations or small businesses in the area to help make those connections for them?
Yeah. Let me just as you ask that question, just rattle off some things. So we work closely with the Veterans Administration. We also work closely with Preble Street, they have also.
In Portland.
They're primarily based in Portland, but they also have a local office right here in Lewiston as well. Mm-hmm. So we work closely with those folks. We work closely with the folks over at the Vet Center over on Westminster. And I'm sure I'm forgetting some folks, but for instance, the Big Lot store in Auburn, the manager over there, Doug Curtis, really good about during Veterans Day or around Memorial Day, he'll set up programs in his store where people purchase stuff, whether it be deodorant, toiletries, bedding for our guys here, and then they bring them over, food items, things like that. So there are the Trinity. We send our folks over to the Trinity. I don't think it's been happening lately, but for the food bank over there, the Pathways Vineyard Church, outer Lewiston. We have a relationship with them. Our guys go over there once a month to get a free bag of groceries. So, yeah, there are a few people. I know I'm forgetting some. One of our biggest, and only because they're big bucks, is the Oxford Casino. Every year they do a drive, and they toss us a big old poker chip that's worth a lot of money. So that's nice. But it's and then how about this? How about we have so many local donors, just private people that I'll meet, and they'll say, "Hey, what do you need?" And one of our biggest needs here is, would you believe, something so simple as a gift card. Just the other day, we had a vet move in, no income. He did have food stamps, but he wasn't sure. He hadn't been using them in a while. He's been in the hospital for some time, so he didn't know how much he had, wasn't sure how to access it. But he was here now, and he needed to go get food. So I happen to have a couple of Walmart gift cards that I was able to give him to get him started. So, and those come from private donors. Somebody might come in and say, "Hey, what do you need?" And I'll say, "How about a gift card?" And they'll give me a couple of Hannaford gift cards or Walmart gift cards.
The support of the community is really important.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. When I get to talking to people, or somebody's walking by, not so much now because of the pandemic, but it used to be some people would just come up to the door, and I'll see them and I'll go greet them, and they'll say, "What is this?" And I'll tell them what it is, and they'll say, "Well, I never knew you were here." We don't have any signage. Okay, we're not trying to advertise that this is that this is transitional. Right. These guys don't want to know that. They don't want people to know that they have pride. So I says, yeah, we're not here. You're not going to find any big signage on the front door. I said, but and I'll give them a tour. and this is what we do, and they usually come back with, hey, how about it? And some of them will come in with bags of groceries, canned soup, and they ask me, what do you guys need? And I always tell them gift cards are good, and then the non-perishable food items, things like that. So yeah, the support from the community is great.
I can imagine that your military experience has led you to this position.
Absolutely.
What can you reflect on from the 20 years you retired as a master sergeant?
So I'm not going to blurt out my age, but a lot of these vets are the same age as I am. Some of them are older. All right, There's a handful that are younger. And when I say younger, I'm talking 30. So a lot of these vets are my age, and we've served at the same time. Most of them, not as long as I have. Most of these veterans here have done shorter stints in the military, 4 years or less, and so right off the bat, we have that in common. We both served. So when they come in and meet me for the first time, and I meet them for the first time, right away we already have something in common. So that's nice. And then the other piece that I take away from my time in the service is the different leadership qualities that I've experienced, because I've had some leaders, some supervisors that I didn't care for. I didn't appreciate their style of leadership. And then I had many others that I loved, and I always told myself, when I become a boss, that's how I want to be. So, and then, there's also that disciplinary piece, and being a retired master sergeant, I don't have a problem, and some of them it takes this. You got to put the old boot up the butt, and having that experience and working with these men here, it has been very helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, getting to master sergeant is no easy feat. That takes a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication.
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Do you keep in touch with any friends from military days?
Facebook is a wonderful thing, and it's primarily, I do have buddies that that we stay in touch with, that we all got out at around the same time, within a 2 or 3, 4 years. I think there's only a couple of guys that I knew in the service that are still in, and these guys, they're going for that 30-year, wanting to become a chief master, or they are a chief master sergeant, the highest rank you can achieve. And but a lot of the guys that like at my 15-year mark on up, a lot of them I can still see them on Facebook.
Yeah, so you retired in 2005, right?
2005, yes.
So if you had stayed in, if you would be 35 years in?
Yeah, well, I think I would have timed out at 30. I think 30 is the max.
That's the max.
Yeah. And
could you imagine that?
On a personal note, the timing wasn't right for us as a family, because you figure at the time when I was getting close to my 20, you and your sister were in high school, and the world events, there was deployments were on the rise. Many of our friends, many of your friends, if you remember, the dads were deploying, dads were gone. Dads and moms were missing. The ones that were deployed were missing graduations. They were missing all the activities that, now your high school kids are participating in. And, and then things that were happening in our family, it was just a good opportunity to come back east, because we were in Texas at the time. It was a good opportunity for us to come back east and I think it was a good time for us to get out right at 20, and obviously I was still young enough to keep working. So yeah, it was the right choice. I don't look back and think we didn't make the right choice. But I also know that if we had decided to stay, we would have been just as happy. Because the Air Force, it really is. That used to be years ago. I don't think they use that slogan anymore, but they used to say the Air Force, a great way of life. And it truly was. I did it as a kid. I did it as an adult. And we really enjoyed our time in the Air Force.
Yes, we did. Yeah. It was, we moved on average every 3 years, it seemed like.
Yeah. That's about
and
right.
That was good and bad.
Yeah.
We made really close friends every time we moved somewhere new, but then we seemed like the next day, basically, we had to say goodbye to them.
Yeah.
That was hard.
Yeah.
But I also think for my sister, Brittany, and I, that experience has really helped shape us
Yeah.
to who we are today. And
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for that.
Right. No, that's good. We everywhere we went, and that was one thing that your mother and I really, we were so glad that you and your sister were so close, and not only being 13 months apart, but so close.
We were best friends.
Best friends.
Yeah.
Because whenever you moved, you guys always had each other.
Yeah.
And that was always nice to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a major factor why we're still such a close family.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you to the U.S. Air Force.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's about it. We're gonna have to wrap it up. But thank you for your service and for what you do today for veterans. And I'm very proud to call you my father.
Well, thank you, Colby, and I'm very proud. I never thought I had my own son interviewing me, but I'm very proud of you as well. You're doing a lot of great things in the community for the Lewiston, Auburn area, and very happy to see that.
Appreciate it.
All right.
My thanks to Ray for sharing his own military experience and his continued work with veterans here in Lewiston, Auburn, and for being a great dad. A big shout out to the YMCA of Auburn, Lewiston, and Uncle Andy's Digest for sponsoring this episode. We have many more exciting guests ahead in upcoming episodes, so make sure you're subscribed to this podcast wherever you listen to your other shows. That way you're not missing out on future episodes as they are released. We also want to thank you for listening. You, our audience, are the most important piece of this program. And we know that these recordings are just slices of a bigger ongoing conversation that we want you to be a part of. If you have any thoughts or ideas, please let us know on social media. LA Metro Magazine is on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Connect with us there. Positive vibes and well wishes from all of us at LA Metro Magazine. Until next time, I'm your host, Colby Michaud. Make sure you're being entertained, staying informed, and getting inspired.